Hi, I'm Rebecca Valcarcel. Let's explore a question about Shakespeare's play Hamlet. Is Hamlet sane? Okay, the question of Hamlet's sanity is one that we're not going to be able to answer definitively, and psychologists have analyzed this character a lot across the years, across the 400 years, people have been asking this question. But we can examine the text a bit and see if we can draw some conclusions. All right, so first of all, we meet Hamlet when he is very dejected, very sad about the death of his father. And his very first words and his first speech is about how sad he is. And he's especially sad that his mother has remarried and seems to be moving on when Hamlet is still very much in grief. So we know for sure that part of his mental state includes deep grief over losing his father, as well as some, bafflement, anger about his mother's remarrying very quickly. But when we really start to wonder about his actual sanity and how stable is he, is when he actually meets the ghost. So when the ghost comes and says, "I've been murdered, please avenge my death," the next time we see Hamlet, he is in a bit of a state. He's not making a lot of sense. His best friend Horatio is there, some guards are there, and they say, "Are you okay? What happened?" And instead of answering them, he says, "Oh, nice to see you. Hey, have a good night. See you later." And they're like, "What are you doing? What are you saying?" And Horatio actually says, "These are but wild and whirling words, my lord." So Horatio is a little more grounded, a little more steady, and he says, "Hamlet, you're acting strangely. What is going on?" Now then Hamlet says, "Hey, I'm going to put an antic disposition on. I'm going to pretend to be manic or mad," as they would say in Shakespeare's time, meaning insane. And so he announces this plan to fake insanity. I'm going to appear to be mad, but I'm not actually mad. However, already he is acting rather strangely. Okay, so he announces, "I'm going to act mad." And of course, he tells his best friend, "Don't reveal why I might be acting that way. Everybody swear to secrecy about this whole thing." So later, we see Hamlet. And is he mad? He actually is giving very philosophical speeches. He makes sense when he talks to his friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. He plays with them a bit. I mean, there's some humor. He also plays with Polonius, trying to tease him. And there's a kind of a joke between the audience and Hamlet as Hamlet insults Polonius. But it's so clever that you kind of feel like he is sane. Because how could someone be so clever and lucid if you didn't have all your faculties? So in scenes with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, in scenes with Polonius, we can tell that he's just teasing and playing with them. And so we can actually see that he's pretty sane. On the other hand, he does admit to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern that he has lost all his mirth. And it goes heavily with me, he says. So he admits that he's feeling purposeless about life. And the to be or not to be speech comes along, and he speaks to himself about basically suicide, basically the idea that life is a bunch of trouble, a sea of troubles, and why don't we oppose those troubles? Why don't we kind of rebel against that by ending our lives? And it's not exactly that he's planning a suicide. He has a weapon in his hand, but he doesn't seem to be actively writing a suicide note or something like that. But he's definitely questioning, what's the purpose of life when it's nothing but suffering? And isn't there a way to end the suffering? Would death end the suffering? And then he reasons that maybe death would not end the suffering. So he rejects actually that death might be a solution. So we see him in grief again and feeling purposeless, but questioning the purpose of life, but not really truly suicidal in my view. So yeah, we see him in grief. We see him playing with people. We see him questioning the purpose of life. But is any of this actual instability? And let's not forget how Hamlet treats Ophelia. What's his mental state there? Well, he doesn't treat her well at all. We have two instances of exchange between them. The first one is off screen, or so to speak, or off stage. It's just reported by Ophelia. Ophelia tells her father, "Oh my gosh, Hamlet came in my room. He was dressed not properly. There was no hat on his head. He just looked disheveled, and he didn't even talk to me. He just kind of sighed dramatically and left the room without even looking at where he was going, out the door." And she is distraught. She runs to her father, and this is what we actually see, is her telling her father that she's scared, I guess, or upset, or wondering what is going on with Hamlet. Now, Polonius says, "Oh, he's acting this way because you've rejected him in love." Of course, she doesn't want to reject him, and her father made her, but he thinks it's love sickness. She can tell there's something else going on, and the audience knows something else is going on. We, the audience, know that he recently had an encounter with the ghost of his father. So we know that that's like part of what's happening. So is he crazy in that moment? Clinically, is there some kind of mental problem with him? Hard to say. We only have Ophelia's report. We don't have dialogue, but she is definitely seeing him behaving in a way she's never seen before. She is frightened enough to run to her father. So yeah, he seems really maybe deranged at that time. So I think that's actually a point in favor of that he is mentally unstable. However, the other exchange that he has with Ophelia is a lot less clear. He acts strangely, but not really illogically. So the other instance, when they actually talk to each other, they see each other for the first time in a long time, and it's actually on stage. We can overhear their conversation. At first, they're shy with each other, they're polite with each other, but then Hamlet realizes that they're being spied on. And he has reason to believe that Ophelia is in on it. So she's a pawn. She's being used. She is a plant to lure him into this room and maybe reveal things that people want to hear. They put her up to this. They're hiding in the background, trying to get more information about whether Hamlet plans to kill the king, mainly. So once Hamlet realizes this, he is angry. And he yells at Ophelia. In some versions of the play, he's like touching her and throwing her around, even, physical with her. In every version, though, he is saying, "You lied to me." He says, "God made you one face, but you make yourselves another," meaning that you're two-faced. You're acting one way, but your heart is somewhere else. Or you pretend to be as loving toward me and faithful, but now you're, just faithful to your father, or now you're trying to get me into trouble, or now you're working for the enemy. I mean, these are the implications of what he's saying. So he doesn't trust her. He can't trust her. And he's so sad about this, that they got to her too, that they like corrupted her. And then he even makes a comment about humanity in general, how we're all corrupt and we're just all dishonest. And, not only is she sullied now, but he admits that he's also not a perfect person. He admits to his own flaws and faults. And he said, "You know what? We should just not have any more children. And especially Ophelia should not have more children." So he says, "Get thee to a nunnery," meaning go become a nun. Go into the church so that you'll be sequestered and you'll never have a family or a husband. Now, probably he doesn't want her to marry someone else and have kids with someone else. That's another factor underlying what he's saying. But the anger he has, this maybe jealousy he has, this outrage he has, actually makes sense given all the stressors here. I mean, a person might snap, but is this a mental snap, like a psychological snap, or is it just an emotional snap. I think he is behaving rudely to her, badly, but he isn't behaving in a way that doesn't follow logically from what has come before, like from what he's going through. So is Hamlet mad? Well, we can compare him to Ophelia, who in the world of the play is actually unstable. She actually loses herself. She, gives flowers to people. She sings little rhymes. Instead of answering a question directly, she'll use a little riddle or refer to a saying. She is not making sense when she's in conversation with the queen and with the king and with her brother. So, and in fact, she does commit suicide, probably, right? Or either she endangers herself so much that she puts herself in harm's way, or she deliberately drowns. And either way, it's because of mental instability that she's put herself in danger. So, if we look at Ophelia and compare that to Hamlet, yeah, he is not at the level she's at. He is not like, his personality is not dissolving or disintegrating. He actually has the wherewithal to make elaborate plans. When he is sent into England, he's able to sneakily find out the truth of what this mission is, and he fights pirates. He gets back to Denmark. Like, he's functioning, right? He's preserving himself, he's functioning, and he still has his plan. And even though he, again, plays with people, like when he sees Claudius and he says, "Oh, you're my mother," we know he's messing with Claudius. And again, can you be that sophisticated if you're actually insane? One piece of evidence, though, we have to look at is the fact that he kills Polonius. So if you haul off and kill someone in the heat of the moment, lawfully, we might be able to say that that is insanity, that you were not in your right mind when you did that. However, Hamlet is kind of hoping to kill the king, and when he hears a noise and he goes after this figure behind the curtain, it's plausible that he thinks it is the king and he's fulfilling his mission. Some people will say, no, he knew it was Polonius. Well, even so, that's not insanity. If he wants to kill Polonius, and he does, then he's just murdering someone, and it's not out of instability or mental decline. It's actually out of wanting to put his will into action, and it's logical that he would want to. Polonius has really messed with his life a lot. So whether it's the king or Polonius, it's logical. All right, so I'm not making a very good case for Hamlet being insane, and you can tell that my personal feeling is that he's not. Even though he's in deep grief, even though he's asking big questions about life, maybe he does have what we would today look at as some depression. He has trouble kind of getting his plan going. Maybe he's lacking some motivation. He says, what a piece of work is man. It's so amazing how the human is built and made and what we're capable of. And even with that wonder he has, he feels like humans are just dust, right? So maybe that points to some depression or some, I don't know, because I'm not a psychologist, I can't diagnose him exactly, but he's acting too intelligently to really be insane, in my view. Even Polonius says how pregnant sometimes his replies are. Like, Polonius is starting to see through it. And Claudius definitely says, though it lacked form a little, this is not madness. When Claudius observes Hamlet from a hiding place, he's like, no, that's not insanity. That is, Claudius is worried. He's like, yeah, this guy's dangerous to me because he is sane and he has reason to get revenge on me. So Claudius is not buying it. So, yeah, I would say that compared to Ophelia, Hamlet is pretty sane. And even though he's dealing with some big stuff in his life, and it does wear on him mentally. He's behaving in pretty logical ways, and he is able to form complex thoughts and put his thoughts into action finally. Yes. Well, all right. Well, so those are some of the conclusions I draw, and I'd be curious to see what you think. So feel free to leave a comment. Please like and subscribe, and see you next time.